Have you ever dimmed your light or shrunk who you are to try and fit in, to try and make other people comfortable? There is a lie that so many of us have believed that if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. Meaning, if I'm too great, I somehow won't feel loved and I won't feel like I belong. I won't be accepted. And it has so many of us downplaying our strengths, hiding our wins and victories, especially girls and women, and just thinking if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. So I'm gonna play life small. I'm gonna call it being humble. I'm gonna call it being, like the right thing to do, when all it does is have you show up inauthentically, first of all, and it then gives that signal to other girls and women to shrink who they are too, right? Here's the thing, like so many of us learn this lie, if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. From the time we're little girls, we often learn to make decisions based on consensus. Like if I know what I want and I know what I want to say and how I feel, somehow that's not the acceptable thing to do. I've got to take a survey of all my friends around me, see how we all feel together about if we like this thing or don't like this thing. And then that turns into us as adults, not trusting ourselves, right? Feeling like, okay, I need to take a poll on how I feel. I need to see how all my friends feel about this thing, if I should stay in this relationship, if I should, wear this dress, if I should, all the things. And then we start learning, but when you have a gift and a strong, passionate feeling and an idea and a thought and a dress you love, you don't want to stand out if no one else loves it. You might get kicked out. Or if you have huge talents, maybe you had a huge victory or, whatever it might be, we learn if we stand out, we get kicked out, and it's a lie. It leads us to feeling like we are diminishing who we are to fit in. So we play life small, we shrink, we try to do things that make other people more comfortable. We downplay our talents and our gifts and our strengths. And then it looks like all the studies coming out, right? You look at some of the studies in the workplace where men are promoted on potential, women are only promoted based on past performance, right? We feel like we have to do things perfectly and accomplish it all perfectly for us to be enough. And then when we're really, really great, we dial it back because we don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable. And then here's the thing, y'all. Because we don't let others see our light shine, because we often don't even acknowledge our light shining, we somehow doubt it's that bright. Even in our soul, we know it is. We then arriving to this place one day in life where we all of a sudden feel invisible and like we're fully unseen and like we don't even see ourselves. Learning to embrace who you are, your strengths, your abilities, your big, bold, wild, amazing ideas, your talents, your gifts, your quirkiness, your style, all of it, even if it stands out. Learning to share it and express it as all of who you are is one of the most powerful things you can do. Because every time you show up in this world as who you authentically are, you are telling yourself you are worthy and enough just as you are. Every time you dim your light, you shrink who you are, you show up inauthentically, you are telling yourself you are unworthy of being all of who you are. This is huge because it impacts your self-worth, and your self-worth is the foundation to everything. Like in life, I say this all the time, we don't rise to what we believe is possible in our life, in our relationships, in our goals, in our dreams, in our ambitions, in our friendships. We don't rise to what we believe is possible. We fall to what we believe we're worthy of. So in the book Worthy, I go deep into all of the lies that we need to unlearn, the lies that lead to self-doubt that we need to unlearn. And one of those is if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. And it's how to unlearn the lie and actually build enough self-worth to step into who you truly are, say what you truly mean, and how you truly feel. And I just want to wrap up this video by saying that for you, if self-worth is something that, if you're always feeling like you're just not quite enough, That is a self-worth thing. You can build confidence, self-confidence all day long. That is how you see your skills and abilities as a person. But your self-worth is different. It's what you believe your value as a person is. And you can build all the confidence in the world and still never feel enough. Building self-worth is so critical. So that's why I wrote Worthy. And I just want to say that today I hope you take one step to stand out, to put your idea out there, to say what you really mean, to say how you really feel. If you know the answer, shout it out. If you want to wear the dress, wear the dress. If you want to crack the joke, even if no one else thinks it's funny but you, be fully funny you. Like all of it, right? Let your light shine so bright, and don't be worried it's going to get you kicked out because you stand out. Like when you let your light shine so bright, you are giving another person permission and an example of how they are worthy of letting their light shine fully. I want to read a quote, a famous quote from Marianne Williamson that I have in Worthy as well, that I think is so powerful today. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that was within us. It's not just within some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson. Today, let your light shine. When I got this lesson in my life, after sabotaging a whole lot of stuff in my life, after getting some things I wanted, but then not understanding why I didn't feel fulfilled, or after getting some things and then literally losing them, this lesson has changed my entire life. I'm excited to share this sneak peek advanced chapter read of my book, Worthy, with you, and also dive into some incredibly powerful tools on how to build true, unshakable self-worth together. I wrote Worthy for every person who has ever doubted you're enough, for every person who's ever doubted your worthiness, and for every person who is sick and tired of what self-doubt has already cost you in your life. And I wrote Worthy after a series of powerful moments led me to consider, what does self-doubt already cost me in my life? And the answer was way too much. And if this is you too, I wrote this book with the intention of helping you feel less alone and more enough, and to share powerful tools that you can apply to your life right now to build true self-worth. So here's the thing, is I used to think I was all alone in these struggles, right? I don't know if you have them too and you feel like you're alone in them, but with deep self-doubt, like I felt alone in that, and I used to try to hide it. And once I became so much more aware, and then I became obsessed with studying self-worth and tools to build it, I learned that I am far from alone. You are too if you feel it. If you struggle with self-doubt, we are far from alone. Studies show more than 80% of women feel like they are not enough. First of all, that is why I'm donating 100% of my author proceeds of Worthy, that in big part go to programs that help build self-worth in girls and women. But it truly is the intention behind this book, because here's the thing, self-worth is the one thing that changes everything in all areas of your life. And what's beautiful and powerful is it is never too late to build it. I don't know who needs to hear this today. One of my amazing friends, Mally Roncal, always says, you are not too old, you're not too young, it's not too late, your best days are ahead. I love that quote from her. And here's the thing, it's never too late to unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness. So I wrote this book for you if you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill. And I am so excited, and I'd love to start by sharing some of the most powerful tools on building self-worth and sharing sort of the high-level overview and the table of contents for Worthy, and just sort of share with you a couple lines and in some cases some deep tools on the key takeaways so that you know what you're in store with this book. Here's the thing. With Worthy, the table of contents, I'm going to take you through it because I want you to really get it, take it in what we're expecting in this book. So part 1 of Worthy is called Seeing. This is all about self-confidence, self-worth, and self-revelations. So chapter 1 is called The One Thing That Transforms Everything. This is a chapter that lays out the foundation of self-worth and how building it truly impacts all areas of your life. And here's the thing, y'all. Okay, I gotta go deep for a minute before I continue. Self-confidence is very different than self-worth. Okay, I wanna pause for a minute and I wanna go deep here on this, because really this is the first tool that was one of the biggest breakthroughs in my life. And it really comes down to the importance of understanding the difference between self-confidence and self-worth and how they both play out in your life right now, okay? This one's big. See, both are so important, but they both are very different. And I've gotten so many questions from you on social media and even live questions tonight in the comments about this. So I wanna go deeper for a minute. See, self-confidence, okay? Self-confidence is how you assess yourself based on your skills, your attributes, how you stack up compared to others, your willingness to try. If you keep the promises you make to yourself, self-confidence, even though it's internal, it can fluctuate by the second based on how things are going all around you, right? If you're winning or you're losing, if you're hitting your fitness goals, how much of the world's definition of success you have. And here's the thing, y'all, almost every advertisement our entire lives tells us, and well-intentioned family and friends, tells us that if we could just get the things that make us more confident, the money, that job title, the white picket fence, the perfect looking family, right? All the things people ask you when they see you, how's your job going? What about your family? Are you in a relationship, right? We're told if we get those things, then we'll be happy, then we'll be fulfilled. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever finally gotten that thing? Like you got it, like you worked so hard to get it. And then you arrive there and you realize, maybe it's after a year or a month or a week or a few hours, you realize you're still not fully happy. And it still feels like something's missing. So then what do we do in that case? We work harder and harder and harder and accomplish more and more and more. We think, I just gotta achieve more. I've just gotta get that next level. Then we arrive, and all y'all achievers out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. We arrive, and what happens? We still feel like something's missing. Here's why. It's because all of these things that we're so often striving so hard to get, they build self-confidence, which is so important to build. But none of them actually build self-worth. Self-worth is the deep, internal knowing that you are innately worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, right now, in this very moment. Not as you achieve, not dependent on anything happening around you or not happening around you or anything in the past that went well or didn't go well, but you are worthy exactly as your Creator made you. And so many women, whether you're high achievers or perfectionists or people pleasers, and really people everywhere, spend their whole lives striving and sacrificing for the things like hitting that fitness goal or getting that job title or the marriage and the kids and the dream house. And then they think, all of us do. You guys, decades of my life I did. I thought I needed to achieve to be happy.
But then we achieve and we arrive going, why aren't we fulfilled? Because while we're building great self-confidence along the way, which again is it's such an important component of life, but we don't realize that those things don't actually build self-worth, and we haven't learned how to build strong self-worth along the way. So both self-confidence and self-worth are such important skills to build in life, but they're both very different. Self-worth is your foundation. That is your foundation. Self-confidence is the house you build on top of it. But your house will only ever be as secure and as fulfilled as the foundation it is built upon. Understanding the difference between self-confidence and self-worth will change every aspect of your life, and learning how to build true self-worth allows you to feel fulfillment while you're achieving all the things that can only build self-confidence. This is a huge revelation, y'all, because for those of you that feel like something's missing in your life and you don't know why and you're doing all the right things, right? And then people often, I'm gonna get way off on a tangent, let me not do this, but people often will quit a job because they think, oh, that's why I'm not fulfilled. Or they'll end a marriage or end a relationship or whatever it is because they think that's why I'm not fulfilled. Something's missing in my life. And so many of the times it's because they're doing all the things that build confidence and they think that they should feel like nothing's missing. But when they do not have underlying self-worth, you can never feel true fulfillment. So here's the deal, y'all. I'm not gonna go off because we'll be on here for 10 hours of a worthy watch party, but separate of your victories and achievements or past mistakes and failures, you are fully worthy. Like true self-worth is knowing you are fully innately worthy right now, in this very moment, exactly as you are. Whew, that is chapter 1, by the way. So let me go through some of these a little faster. But y'all, we didn't come here to play. Like, your time is precious, and decades of my life, I couldn't understand why I felt like something was missing, or why I sabotaged opportunities, etc. This has been the one thing that's changed everything in my life. So I'm just honored to share it with you. Okay, chapter 2 is called Change Your Relationship with Rejection, Change Your Entire Life. If you feel stuck in life, or if you've had, the fear of rejection or failure, or if you've ever felt like you are a failure, and I only say that because so many of you guys write in and say that to me, that you feel that way, this chapter is gonna be life-changing for you. Chapter 2 called Change Your Relationship with Rejection, Change Your Life. Chapter 3 is called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. You're not crazy, you're just first. If you have ever felt like you're different, or like who you are isn't enough, or like you don't belong, this chapter reframes that and will set you free. I am going to come back in a minute, actually, because I really want to share a powerful lesson and a tool with you in words that I hope speak to your soul that you can apply to your life right now. Chapter 4, you have greatness inside of you. This is all about how your past doesn't determine your future. It's all about how your past mistakes or past pain or past regrets, past failures doesn't determine your worthiness, and how where you come from doesn't have to determine where you're going. Okay, if you're someone who feels like you've made too many mistakes, been too hurt, or maybe you feel like you've hurt others too many times, or maybe you feel like you're somehow damaged or broken or have been carrying around shame, I share some of the things in my past for the first time ever in this chapter. And I share things that most of my family doesn't know, that many who read it might shame me for. But I'm sharing them because this book isn't about me, right? This book is about the one person reading it. Maybe that is you, who needs to know that you are not alone. right? That your past, as my dear friend Ed Milet says, your past does not disqualify you from your dreams. And this chapter, I almost deleted a few times because I know how shocking it's going to be to a lot of people in my family. But here's the thing, y'all. The story the press loves to share about me looks like, the highlight reel, right? It looks like the highlight reel. And Denny's waitress builds billion-dollar company, and that's all true. But this isn't a book about my story. This is a book about your story, right? When I wrote Believe It, it was my journey of learning to believe in myself up until that point. Worthy is the playbook on how you can believe in you. And I just knew I cannot allow this chapter to be deleted because I know what I know. And it is for the one person, and maybe it's you, who feels like what you've done in the past and the shame you've been carrying around for it has caused you to have deep self-worth issues where you identify as someone who's broken or shameful or made too many mistakes and all that, and that you're sort of putting up this barrier of belief of how, we opened tonight talking about how in life you don't rise to what you believe is possible, you fall to what you believe you're worthy of. This chapter is about reframing and shifting what you know. I'm not even gonna say what you believe, what you know you're worthy of, regardless of past mistakes or anything that's happened in the past.
Your self-worth is literally the one thing that changes everything. The one thing that changes everything. And so often we think, whether it's in relationships, that we need to, do all the work to understand every detail of them to make them stronger. And that's true. That stuff really, really helps to understand at a granular level, how do you become a great friend or a great partner in a relationship? And all of that work's important. But underneath it all, if you don't also do the work of self-worth, of believing you are worthy of great friendships, of great relationships, then you will always sabotage them, or you will always do something to either never go for them, to never ask the person, do you want to be friends, and invest in that friendship as an adult, or you'll never tell the person you want to be more than friends in the relationship, or you somehow will hold back from showing up as the person you can be in that relationship if underneath it all you don't believe you're worthy of a really, really great relationship. We'll sabotage it, we'll either never go for it, or in some other way we'll make sure it cools down to the level of our self-worth. Similarly in business, in your career, your ambitions, the business you're launching out there into the world. So often we think, I just don't have enough experience yet, or I don't have, the right skill set yet, or the right connections, or the right mentor, all those kind of things. At the end of the day, when deep down inside you believe you're worthy of launching the business, of taking that business to new heights, of being an incredible leader, an incredible CEO, incredible boss, right? It's only by believing you're worthy of it that you'll literally go to that level. This is the one thing that literally changes everything. And so it is important to invest in building a skill set and building attributes and strengths and experiences and all of that. But the most important thing is to build strong self-worth underneath all of it, so that you have the foundation of your own identity. So there's a classic example that has been used for a zillion years in personal development, and it correlates your identity to the example of a thermostat, right? So you probably have heard this example, but it's important when you look at it through the lens of self-worth. So you may have heard a number of thought leaders talk about how we all have our own internal thermostat, right? That's like an automatic one. When you imagine walking into a room, maybe in your house or your office right now, maybe you have an automatic thermostat on the wall, and if you have it set at 75 degrees, and if all of a sudden things heat up in that room, what happens? That thermostat kicks in, lowers the temperature back down, right, to 75. Meanwhile, if things just get freezing cold in that room, it's gonna kick in and raise the temperature back up to 75. And so the classic example that so many thought leaders have shared is really applicable when it comes to self-worth and your identity. Because let's say you set your self-worth, you believe you're worthy, you believe you're worth 75. Okay, that's the level of your self-worth. That's your identity right now, deep internal identity. Well, then when things go really, really right in your business or your relationships or your friendships or your goals and dreams, and all of a sudden it's on fire, it's a 90, but underneath it you only believe you're worthy of 75, your thermostat kicks in. It sabotages the relationship. It doesn't call that person back. It doesn't show up and put your ideas out into the world. You work less hard, procrastination, feeling stuck. And before you know it, that 95 is back down to a 75. Similarly, if things are just going awful and they're really bad, they're down there to 50, when you believe you're a 75, you'll figure out, okay, what moves do I need to make? What efforts do I need to put in to get back up to that 75? Here's the thing, and I talk about this, I go deep in the master class inside of Worthy on how do you take that number, that 75 and raise it. How do you raise your internal level of identity and self-worth? Because you will not soar to the level of your goals and dreams. You will stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. It is the one thing that truly transforms everything in your life. And the book, which you can pre-order now, you get lots of bonuses with it. There's over 20 tools in this book, which is why I wrote it, because in my life, there are so many things where I didn't realize, why did I stay stuck? Why did I sabotage that thing? Why didn't I go to the next level? Like when I know in my soul I can, right? It's because when we don't believe we're worthy of it, every day, all day, we will sabotage it. We will stay stuck. We won't go for it because we have our level of identity right there at a 75. You know what I mean? And so if you can relate to this, the very first step is just become aware. Today, all I want you to do, in addition to ordering Worthy, because we're going to go through a lot of trainings together on how to do this as well, but I deep dive into it. But the trainings are part of a bonus when you grab it, when you pre-order the book. But what I really want you to do right now too is just become aware of it. Just become aware and be like, what do I believe my own internal identity is around self-worth? And how does that manifest in my life? What have I sabotaged? And think about all the areas of your life. What areas have I stayed stuck in and I don't know why? Like maybe you have a book inside of you or an idea and you don't know why you haven't written it. Or you have this big idea you want to share in that, team meeting tomorrow. And every time there's an opportunity, you don't share it. Because we will not rise to the level of our goals and dreams. We will stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. So for now, just start to think about the areas of your life and how this impacts it. I love you. I believe in you. And by the way, the best thing is we can raise that number. I know it because I've done it. We can raise that number. Okay? That is the most exciting part. Do you believe the lie that you should only be seen when you're happy? Right? Do you ever hide all your other emotions and maybe put on this sort of fill in your name uniform of the person you feel like everyone wants you to show up as? Even though inside you might be feeling a whole lot of other things. Well, here's the deal. We live in a culture right now that sort of has these two juxtapositions. We're seeing all of this heartbreaking, horrific news happening all the time. And then we have good vibes only signs everywhere. And, I'm so much and such a proponent about positivity and about choosing the meaning we attach to things and all that. But it's also so important to know that you are worthy of being who you truly are, saying how you truly feel, meaning what you say, right? And showing up and believing you're worthy of showing up as who you really are in your friendships, in your relationships. It's so important because every time we put on a mask and pretend to be somebody else, every time we hide the messy parts of our life, every time we think we should only be seen when we're happy, and then we show up inauthentically, whether it's in a friendship or in our job or in a relationship, on social media, doesn't matter where it is. Anytime you show up inauthentically, you are actually telling yourself you are unworthy of being who you truly are and feeling what you really feel, right? And it starts to chip away at your self-worth. And self-worth is everything because in life, we don't soar to the level of our goals and dreams. We stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. We don't rise to what we believe is possible. We fall to what we believe we're worthy of. And part of building really strong self-worth is identifying and unlearning all the lies that lead to self-doubt, and then igniting, waking up and embracing all the truths that wake up worthiness. So in my book, Worthy, there is an entire chapter. There's a whole section on the lies, by the way, unlearning the lies that lead to self-doubt. And one of those lies is, I should only be seen when I'm happy. And what does that look like? That looks like we might desperately want connection with a friend, but we wait to call them because we just don't want to burden them with our problems. Or we don't want to lower their vibration, or we don't want to bring them down. So then we hide, we feel lonely, and then we either put a mask on and call them and act like everything's great, or answer the call when they call, act like everything's great. Or we just wait until we have something positive or uplifting or great news to share with them. As a result, loneliness is at an all-time high. In fact, right now, 75% of us, right? You look at studies, 75% of us say that we'll only show our happy or positive emotions, and we'll literally hide or bury the negative or other, perceived negative emotions. I love the quote by Glennon Doyle that says, being human isn't about feeling happy, it's about feeling everything. And learning to know that you are worthy and that you are enough to feel everything is so important. Showing up as who you authentically are, fully you, is actually the only way to create a true human connection with another human, a true connection, right? We have all of these sort of false, unfulfilling connections that we might feel on social media, or we might feel if we're showing up as only part of who we are, but not all of who we are. And again, I said this a minute ago, but every time you show up inauthentically, you are telling yourself you're not worthy of being who you are. So it does slowly chip away at your self-worth. It's so important to know you are worthy of all of your feelings. They're all valid. The positive ones, the negative ones, the times when you just need to vent and have someone hear you, the times when you feel heartbroken, the times when you feel insecure, right? We all feel those. And we're kind of in this society where we're wearing these good vibes only shirts, and they're super cute. I have a few. But when we're only wearing those, we start to think that we're not worthy of showing up unless we're only feeling good vibes. And that's just not true. It is so important right now, today, to make the decision. Well, first of all, just be aware of it. Like, am I only showing up when I feel like I have something positive to share with someone? And then am I feeling alone or hiding who I am, or not calling the friend back, or not answering the text, or not answering the call, or not answering the email, or declining the invitation when I feel like I'm just not in that positive state? And I don't want anyone to see me in anything other than a positive state. There's a recipe for loneliness. So today, just to kind of do a check and go, am I showing up for my true friends, the people I trust, the people I love, as all of who I am? Am I sharing times when I'm down and times when I'm up? Am I sharing how I really feel and saying what I really mean? And if the answer is no, decide if that's an old story, an old lie you want to unlearn, that you are only worthy of showing up when you're happy. Because it's a lie. You're worthy of showing up exactly as you are, right? And then today, make that decision to take one step. You could just take one small step forward of deciding, I'm going to call a friend up who I trust. I'm going to actually share what I really feel. Or I'm going to share, I'm kind of insecure today, or I'm kind of down today. Right? And one tip, and I talk about this, and I go in deep in the chapter in Worthy called I Shall Only Be Seen When I'm Happy, the lie, and how to unlearn that lie. But one of my friends, Glow Atano, talks about how she does what she calls a capacity check, right? Have you ever had, because by the way, listening Like listening can actually be depleting. Studies show it's depleting on the listener. So listen, I'm a good listener, by the way. Listeners are heroes. My husband's a great talker. I'm a great listener. Listeners are heroes. It's also depleting to listen. And so one tool as you start to implement this in your life, where you start really sharing how you're really feeling, the good, the bad, the insecure, the excited, all of it, right, is what's called a capacity check, what my friend Glow calls a capacity check, which means, when you call someone up, or it could be your partner at home or your friend, you just ask them like, hey, I have something kind of, serious I want to share or heavy on my heart. Do you have capacity right now for a conversation? And then they might say yes, they might say no, they might say, oh, you know what, I'm super going a million miles an hour right now, but can we talk tonight at 6 p.m.? Like, you just kind of check, do you have capacity for a conversation that's not just happy? You know what I mean? And doing that capacity check's huge. I actually started doing it in my marriage. Sometimes when my husband Paulo will come up to me, I'll say, okay, do you want to just vent? Do you want me to give you advice? Do you want me to just listen? Here's how much capacity I have right now. And if you need more than that, let's pick a time, kind of thing. And I'll ask him the same thing. And it's been, huge for us. And, if you don't want to start asking this right away in your relationships, you could ask others to do it for you. Can you, check in with me and say capacity check? But if you aren't ready to do that yet, you can just start doing it, right? You can just call them up and say, hey, do you have capacity? Kind of a thing. But if you have a friend that maybe is always calling you and wants to just dump all the time, well, that's when you can kind of start to implement those boundaries. You can start by just setting the example yourself and just saying, hey, I want to share something with you, but I want to do a capacity check. Do you have capacity for this conversation? And then you kind of ease into it and you eventually ask them, hey, would you mind just checking in with me if I have capacity for something that's heavy right now? And you just kind of build trust and you build connection and you speak your truth. And, it's the most beautiful thing that I know for so many of us who are raised people pleasers, or who believe, especially girls and women, we're taught like, just smile, just be quiet. Like, I have so many memories growing up of being a little girl, and I'd walk into a supermarket, and if I wasn't smiling for a second, some adult would say, smile, like as if that's my job. We're taught we should only be seen if we're happy. It's a lie, and it's a lie that leads to disconnection. It's a lie that leads to us showing up inauthentically and chipping away at our self-worth. So the time to unlearn that lie has come, because you deserve to be seen when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're insecure, when you're lonely, all the emotions, the good and bad. You are fully worthy of every single one of them.
The first thing I'll say about authenticity, because so many of us are scared to be who we really are, right? Because we fear rejection or isolation or not being included or judgment or all those things. And first of all, just one little tip, and you'll know this so probably way more than I do, Jim. But one thing that's always helped me is like so many studies out there talk about how it's impossible to have a real true connection with another human being if you show up as your representative, if you don't show up as your full authentic self, for better or worse, right? The good parts, the bad parts, the quirky parts, whatever. And whether the relationships you want to have are with your partner or your customers or your community on social media, you actually cannot have a fully authentic relationship if you're not showing up as your full authentic self, for better or worse. And so if right now you're listening and you're like, oh, well, I'm showing up kind of as the person I think I need to be, or I'm getting distracted by other people on social media because they're having great success, or their podcast is doing well, or their business, my competitors' businesses are having success by doing this, so I'm going to do that. You are robbing yourself of that actual authentic connection with your own customers, your own community, or your own friends, or your own family. That literally is the only way, from my experience, to build anything that lasts, anything that matters. Like in my journey of now doing over 1,000 live TV shows on QVC, right? I've met thousands of entrepreneurs in the green room, and most of them only last one show, maybe two, and they're gone. And I would like, over the years, I would think, what is that commonality between the people who end up building something? And it's never how smart they are. It's never how skilled they are on television. It's never that. It's the ones that like are the same way in the green room when no one's watching as they are on air. And they're not, none of them are the same. Some are crazy and wild, and some are totally like, whoa. And some are really kind, but the ones that have that congruency, that show up on air and sell their product, whatever it is, whether it's a Dyson vacuum or a personal growth, whatever it is, they're the same, right? Because guess what? The people watching are able to connect because you can't fake authenticity. And I feel like learning that is freedom, because it is so stressful when you feel like you need to show up on social media as something that you're not, because you're trying to build a following and get more likes, or you're showing up in the dating world and you're as your representative, because whatever, it is so stressful. But like, when you realize being authentic it's the most freeing thing, because you now no longer care if something's working for a competitor in your industry or this or that, because it doesn't matter unless it's truly authentic to who you are. And one quick thing is, like, I used to we built to over 1,000 employees. So I went from not paying myself for 3 years to over 1,000 employees. And they would get so sick of me saying this, but I feel like it was one of the keys to our success was they would, tell me something a competitor was doing or a new product launch or whatever. And I would say, listen, our biggest threat to our business is not what the competition's doing. It's the risk of us getting distracted by it and like getting tempted to dilute our own authentic secret sauce. That's it. And it was kind of like staying true to that helped us actually build something that mattered. And listening to that, even sometimes when the experts out there, or in my case, the retailers were telling me they didn't believe in it. And one more quick thing is just in this process, because you mentioned, the people around you, if they're doubting you, right? Another big tool just to share with everyone listening that helped me is just everybody around you in your circle, whether it's friends, a partner, people you work with, whoever. They're only capable of believing in your dream, whether they realize it or not. They're only capable of really believing in it, usually, if like their own lens they're seeing it through of life experience and limitations has already proven to them it will be successful, right? Like, so many people, even experts or visionaries, like they would never admit this, but like, if you're doing something new or novel, or maybe it's been done a million times, but you're doing it your own way, it's really hard for anyone else to ever think it's going to be successful, because they've never seen it be successful before, because it's never been done the way you're going to do it. So keeping that in mind, and Jim, I would have this imaginary volume dial, and everyone listening has this. Okay, imagine you have your control over your own volume dial. I think one of the biggest keys to overcoming self-doubt on your own journey, whether it's to start painting again, or to start writing that book, or to just freaking go online and make an online dating profile and put yourself out there, right? I think like one of the biggest keys is learning how to control your own volume dial with who you let speak into your life about what. And what I learned, and again, I share a million things I did wrong in this book too.
One of the things I like to do is just try to learn, analyze any story of greatness, any story of success, and try to determine and put language on what are the unique attributes in this story. And you raised one, Jamie, that I think is more true for you than anybody I know, and should be true for more business and ministry leaders. And so if we look at your story, one is great idea. Two is great product. Three is great execution. Four, you've got tenacity, overcoming obstacles. You've got rejection. You've got good business sense. You've got the ability to scale. You're creating the right culture. So we've got all those things that we typically think about. There's an ingredient that I don't hear often, and that is what you said, and that is authenticity in mission and leadership. And what you have is a very rare authenticity. And the reason I want to drill in on this is because it's not all about systems. It's not all about strategy. It's not all about location. It's not all about ideas. Sometimes you just have to be believable as a leader. And you had a problem and you had a solution, and then your problem that you were attacking was bigger than just skin issues, but it was actually kind of a culture that maybe would shame people for not being something that someone else is. And that authenticity is one of probably the least talked about, most important tools of great leadership. And in my just humble admiration of your story, I think that's one of the lead lines of the success that I want to highlight and help other leaders see. We say it this way, that, be yourself as a leader, because people would rather follow someone who's real than someone who's right. And you're just that. And I hope that other leaders will see it. When they study you, you write about it a lot in your book. I want to hold it up if anybody's watching, believe it, how to get from underestimated to unstoppable. Just fantastic, New York Times bestselling book with every good reason. You write a lot about kind of that in there, and I want to drill down into something. I think that there's, who knows how many people are listening right now are working in a company and they have resistance. They have an idea and it's getting shot down. They're trying to start a ministry and it's not going well, and they're facing rejection. You said earlier, it's not all glamorous. I would say probably almost all of it's not glamorous. Like, there's very little glamorous, and almost every great story of success is filled with rejection. I was turned down for ordination. So I'm a pastor, and I was rejected for ordination. And almost every story like that has an overcoming rejection.
It's been a journey. So, and I've really been, it's funny because we have like mutual friends and stuff, but like they're really new in my life, because for almost a decade, like all I did was like work and like trying to build the company, do it, you know what I mean? And so, that's why seeing that pajama party, I was like, I've got to go. Like, I want to be around girlfriends. Like, I need to get a life, because for a long time I didn't have one. So.
It's hard to have one when you're doing, when you do what you did to that level. And then, I mean, people think it's like, people are overnight successes, but you're a testament to, that is not the case. I mean, it's hard to have a social life and go to pajama parties when you are, you're building and grinding and hustling to create what you created. And it's funny because I'm not a makeup person by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I knew what It Cosmetics was, because you guys have a concealer and a BB cream, or is it a CC? I can't remember. Is it a CC cream that I use?
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And, I think part of it, because growing up, like I didn't see any type of business, like monetary success, any stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents worked super hard. But my journey was really different. Like, I worked as a Denny's waitress, and and like pushed grocery carts in the Safeway parking lot and all those things, like, and trying to pay my way through school and stuff like that. And I always kind of like had this like gut feeling like, okay, like I'm meant to serve or give or something. Like, I'm meant to do more than like what I'm doing right now and where I'm at. And it's been a decade of like literally starting with close to nothing. And then, when I launched this idea, this kind of dream, I had no idea how hard it would be. Like, the first 3 years of the business was like hundreds of no's, like tons of rejection, some of it really brutal. I think so many people like have a dream and then they're like, oh, and then once you go after it, you're like, oh, this isn't happening like I thought it was going to happen. And there's like no proof around me that it's actually a good idea. And like, what was I thinking? And did I list, like, is my gut wrong? And it was really this crazy journey in so many ways of where it started to then building it into a $1 billion business. And, the thing when I, over the years, and really why I wrote this book, my first ever book, is really because, and it's by the way, such a big week right now, launch week of the book. I'm excited to share it with you and your whole community and everything. But this book is really like, oh gosh, I've noticed that you always see, like when you Google, right, you see the headlines like, oh, struggling waitress sells $1 billion company. And I get so many DMs on Instagram from women, especially saying like, oh, like, how did you do it? Did you just get lucky? Or like, did you all these things? And I'm like, oh, wow. It made me realize that so often, like, we don't ever see the story behind the story of stuff. And when we don't see that, then it's like when we go through our own setbacks and our own struggles, it's like we feel alone in them, or like it must be us, or maybe we're not the kind of person that success happens to, or whatever. And just seeing really DMs on Instagram and just getting these questions over the years, I'm like, you know what? Like, I had this moment where I realized I'm actually, for the first time ever, like gonna share like everything that really happened. And the book, Believe It, is a story, really my story of going from a girl who didn't believe in herself to believing in herself, and like not trusting herself to like learning how to trust herself, doubting that she's enough, to like learning to believe she's enough. And what really inspired me to write it was like, oh yeah, it's my story, but it's also the story of so many other women and people out there right now who are like, you know, who have this like feeling like, you know, they're made for more, or they have a feeling like they have more to give, or whether it's like launch the podcast, or start painting again, or like write the first chapter of the book, or, you know, join a dance class, whatever it is, like they know inside they're created for more, but like they doubt themselves anyway. And when I think back on my whole journey, like why I wanted to write this book really is for every person out there who really is dealing with doubt in their own head, whether it comes from their own head or from like the people around them, like other people's opinions, or just the simple fact that they're trying their dream and they're trying to build their business, or they're trying to, you know, get clients for their dance studio, whatever it is. And like the success around them isn't happening right now. And it's like, how do you know? How do you learn to hear your own gut and trust it? How do you learn to like break through all the noise of self-doubt and really learn to believe you are enough and to step into all that you are and all that you're called to be? And I think that so many people give up or stay in their comfort zone and never actually you know, become the person they're created to be because of so many reasons, right? And it's why so many people quit. And so anyhow, this book is really for every person just on their journey who wants like all the tips and lessons of how to do that. And I really share like so many personal and professional stories, right, of learning to do that. And then I also share the stuff I still am struggling with, where it's still a work in progress. And it's just raw and emotional and vulnerable. And honestly, I'm scared because I'm used to like, let me give a CEO talk in the boardroom. And this is like, oh no, this is the real shit. This is the real stories behind the stories that are really personal. But my prayer is just that it's not about me. And it's, you know, I'm donating the book. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds of the book. Like I'm not doing, literally the only reason I'm doing this book is because for me, it's the best, I think, best work I've ever done in my life. And that I know it's not about me. And my prayer is just that it helps every single person out there on their own journey of knowing they're enough and stepping into all of who they are. So that was a long answer, but a real answer.
But a good one. I love it. You know, you gave me a lot of good little nuggets to go with there. First of all, where is the proceeds? Do you have a charity that you're going to be giving the?
No, two of them, but one of the big ones too is Feeding America, because right now, I mean, wow, what a year it's been for so many of us. And there's tens of millions of families now that are food insecure, and you know, we're going to have a vaccine, but we're still going to go through a really tough season. And they're saying it could go, you know, well into 2021. And I think that right now, I think it's like the last number I read was 17 million kids are food insecure just in our country right now. So, so that's a big one. And by the way, I was a Denny's waitress I know how to serve food. So now I'm just going to donate a lot of food.
I saw that. I think I also saw that you said something like you were at Denny's, but you lost the job because you talked too much and gave away too much free food.
Oh my gosh. Well, here, you know what's funny? Okay, this is the funny thing is, I don't know if I would love to hear too if you feel the same way, but I think so many times in our lives, like the setbacks we go through end up being like setups for like actually things we're supposed to do next or walk into next. And when I think about Denny's, so the Denny's I worked at, which was in Pullman, Washington, had massive operational issues. Sometimes it would take like an hour for the pancakes to come out, and people would get mad, right? So some people would leave, and then some people would stay, but then they wouldn't tip me. And I'm like, I have nothing to do with the pancake timing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so what's funny is, and I'm like kind of an introvert normally, and that job, I was like, dude, I'm trying to pay my way through school. Like I can barely afford my tuition, my bills. I'm like, I've got to get tips. And so I learned to talk, like, just talk to people and
to kind of get them kind of like okay with the wait.
Yes, because it was the longest wait for the pancakes to come out. Anyways, I eventually, got fired for talking too much. But I believe, and by the way, the cool thing that came out of it was like, I didn't know it at the time. I never knew one day I'd start a business or anything, but I had this lesson ingrained in me that like, oh, if your operations aren't right, it can impact everything else. And I remember, and like for a lot of us, when we launch a business or a dream or whatever, we want to do the thing we love, but we don't want to handle the operations. We don't want to. And I just remember that lesson. And I remember when we created It Cosmetics, I'm like, okay, we've got to figure out the operational infrastructure, because if that's not there, it's like everything else collapses, even though operational infrastructure is not my passion. But I thank Denny's for that lesson.
For that first lesson. Yeah. It's 100% true. I always say that too. I feel like so many times when things were disappointments, it ends up working. It does end up there. Kind of like a silver lining does happen, or another opportunity arises that you never even knew existed because of that setback.
Yeah.
And it's a very important it's a really important life lesson, or like an important thing to remember in those darker times when things are not working.
And it's hard, right? Because when you're in that dark moment, like I can think of so many major no's in my journey of building the company where I thought like, oh my gosh, everything's on the line. I need this investor to say yes, because I don't know how I'm going to make it if he doesn't. Or I am dreaming for years of being in this retailer, and like they keep saying no, but I need this yes. And then it's like those big rejections, right? Sometimes it's a friend rejecting us. Sometimes it's someone we're totally into that we're dating, and then we're like, oh, so they're just not that into us. Those things hurt, like they hurt and they suck and they are devastating. And there's a million nights I cry myself to sleep, but like, so it's hard to do it. But like, when I look back at everything, I just know that's true, that our setbacks, no matter how painful they are, really are set up. So like if we're open to,
if you're open to that, and open to seeing the other opportunities or the windows that are opening when the door slams on your face, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So a couple of different things again that you were saying. Number one, that you were, and you open with this in your book, and I've heard you talk about this, is that you very much trust your intuition and your gut, and it's more really. If you can give anyone, I saw you say this you said this in the book, your gut and intuition is more important than other people's advice, which I'm a strong believer in, right? But it's very difficult for some people to do that, right? Because of that self-doubt, because of that fear. How did you kind of hone that skill of really listening to your gut?
Yeah.
Was there like a a moment in your life, or like some kind of turning point when you kind of decided to kind of go that way, or explain that?
Yeah, I think that it's for every person. I think it's a journey, and I think a lot of people don't start the journey. I think that I believe we all have an intuition, like an inner knowing. And I think what happens for so many of us is that, to your point, the noise of self-doubt is in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us. We have experts who are credible and touted visionaries saying how stuff should be done, right? In some cases. And there's so much. We turn on the news and people are fighting. We have there's so much everywhere that it ends up being so noisy that we almost can't even hear our own gut anymore. And a lot of people never ever really just develop that ability to just get still and hear it. And a lot of people have heard it in the past, but it's been a long time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or they think they heard it and it turns out to be wrong. And then they start doubting themselves. So for me, it's been a journey. And one of the big things is when I look back, because there are so many times where I doubted my gut, and I was like, oh, you know what? They're experts for a reason, or this person's had so much success. Let me just listen to them, even though it's not quite sitting right with me. And when I look back at a lot of the mistakes I made, they were all really around times when I went against my own gut. And so it's really a thing I think we develop over time, really by paying attention. And I think we're all born with it, though. I think we have it. And then I think our life lessons build on it. But it's sometimes it's simple. It's we date a dude and we're oh, he's sketchy, but we don't want to believe it.
Yeah,
and you're
exactly.
Oh, maybe his phone did break. And
Yes.
maybe he just fell asleep last night and I couldn't get a hold of him. He didn't disappear. He wasn't somewhere else. Right. And we kind of know. And
we know.
Right. We know. And we choose not to. And I think that carries through our whole life. And, for me, getting still, it's a practice. It's a journey. But getting still, even 5 minutes a day, and that's hard. A lot of people try to get still, whether it's to meditate or in prayer, whatever it is. But when you try to get still for 5 minutes, no phone, no anything. Sometimes I just go in the closet because I have 2 little ones.
No, me too. I know. I do that all the time.
And I just literally try to get still. And I'm not perfect at it because I try to hear my gut. And sometimes I end up thinking of my to-do list or whatever else is going on. But I really work on it to tune into that. And when I look back, there's, oh gosh, so many stories that I share in this book I've never shared before. But one of the most powerful lessons in my entire career and my life came down to a moment when we got one shot on QVC. And what had happened is, we'd been building from our living room for 3 years and hearing no from everybody. And QVC said no several times. And one day I got their head guy, Alan Burke, who'd built this billion-dollar beauty empire, on the phone. And I thought for sure if he's going to give me a few seconds of his time, it's going to be a yes. And
Well, how did you get him on the phone? How did you get him on the phone first?
Yeah, by obsessively sending products for 2.5 years.
Okay.
LinkedIn, I would go on LinkedIn and send messages to any person that worked at QVC. It didn't matter to me what their job title was. And I tried to send them products. If I could get them.
Yeah.
And I finally begged his assistant to just set up a call with me. Could you just get him to review the product? So it was a lot of that.
And I thought you were going to say that, what I thought was super clever, before you even tell everyone the QVC story, which I think is a very poignant point in your career, or at It Cosmetics.
Yeah.
You called was it Marie at itcosmetics.com? Yeah. That's your middle name. And you use that as you pretend that was your PR person, which is so scrappy, so clever and gritty. I loved it. I highlighted it really, really strong.
I love that you have a highlighter in your hand right now. I'm so excited. I love it.
This is my best friend, by the way. This is this highlighter lives with me.
You know what? So the Marie story, here's the
That's thing. Amazing.
I was let me just share all of it, because I don't want people to just go, oh, that's great. These kind of things happen to other people. But for me, I can't afford to hire anyone or whatever. Right. But we all go through that. And so I share so many stories of like, how did I figure this out with no money or no connections or whatever? And it's like, sometimes you
Yes.
got to do what you got to do, because I couldn't afford to hire anybody, right? My husband and I, we wrote the business plan on our honeymoon flight, and, both quit our jobs and thought, oh, we'll take our small amount of savings, pour it into making the best product ever, hiring an advisory board, and then the product is going to sell. And then I didn't realize, oh, it's not that easy, and didn't realize it would be 3 years before I could afford to pay myself. And so, in those early years, like, I couldn't afford to hire people who knew what they were doing in like
Right.
all these areas. And so, you figured out I mean, I would Google like everything, FDA regulatory compliance, and how to write the labels on the packaging, and like just everything. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, my name's Jamie Marie Kern Lima. And so Marie, which is my middle name, got her own email address, right? Marie at itcosmetics.com. And she became head of PR, head of customer service. Like, she was a hustler. And so
Yeah.
she would like email, the Today Show, Good Morning America, and be like, great news. Our founder, Jamie Kern Lima, is available for an
I love it.
interview. And we're launching a new product. Like, and just like, so
cool.
Marie was a hustler. And Marie got just as many no's, a lot more ignores, but she hustled and she got some press.
Good for her.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, listen, it's like, the journey, it's hard. And I feel like these stories, and so many of the stories I share in the book, I feel like they're so important to share, because now we're sitting in this world where we like see everything on social media. And a lot of times people, whether they want to, write a book, or maybe they have an idea for a business or a product or something, but they're like, oh, they see everyone on social media, like, oh, everyone's already done my idea. And it looks so good. Like, it's working so well for them. And then they talk themselves out of their own purpose and their own calling and their own truth, right? And I think like what's so important is like, oh, just because you see, in my case, if you Google, you see like, oh, $1 billion success story, whatever. It's like, oh, no. Like, here's what really happened. And if someone's listening right now and they're going through a season of rejection and a season of disappointment and a season of setbacks, I just feel like it is so important to know that when we go through those, we're not alone. And it's no indication of the potential of your idea or your success or your dream or your calling. It's like, oh no, like we're all in this together. This stuff happens to almost all of us, and here's the things I did that helped me not quit and help me keep going and help me believe even when other people didn't. And one of my biggest, only if you want me to share it, but one of the biggest lessons on just trusting your own gut versus, what
I want you to talk about that. That's a huge, the QVC story. That to me was like a major pivotal moment in your entire career. So
yeah.
I wanted to hear first I want you to tell whoever who's listening, how did you finally, because it wasn't like this was your first time contacting QVC. It was many, many times. It was no. You were told no by Sephora and by private equity people who were rude to you. And
and your question about getting a hold of that guy.
Yeah. How did you finally get in touch with them?
When I finally got through, his assistant finally set up a call. I thought for sure. I was like, oh my gosh, Alan Burke is getting on the phone with me. Like, this is going to be like, I was freaking out, like pacing my office, which was our living room. And I was, and I remember when we finally got on the phone call and he's like, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to tell myself like they'd be lucky to have us. Like I'm like, hi, Alan, like nice to meet you. And he was so kind and awesome and all those things. And he said, listen, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers here, and it's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And let me tell you why. And like I just tried again and poured my heart out. And it was a no. And so I thanked him for his time, and like literally tears are streaming down my face because I didn't know at this point, we're a few years in, like, how are we going to make it? And that day I remember like going to bed, crying myself to sleep. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen where you like get really bad news and then you go to bed and then you wake up the next morning and you hoped it was a dream.
Yes, of
And
course. Happens all the time.
yeah. And then it's like, oh, it wasn't. And it was like, that was what it was like for 3 days in a row. And anyhow, we had a season of several years of no's from everybody. The QVC, and by the way, QVC was my dream because my whole life, for like similar to so many of us, I had always seen magazines and commercials on TV with these models that had perfect skin and all these things. And I remember growing up, seeing all of them and going, oh, I want to aspire to look like that. But then always somehow also feeling like I wasn't enough when I saw them. And I didn't put this all together until my journey of getting rosacea on my cheeks, which is, hereditary skin condition, and trying everything I could get my hands on and none of it working, and making that decision that, you know what, I'm going to quit my job as a journalist. And my whole life, I've dreamed of being a talk show host, and that I love other people's stories, like not mine, other people's stories. And I thought I was going to do that my whole career. And when I had this moment, like, my gut just kept telling me, like, nothing's working for you. There must be so many other people out there like you who maybe have skin challenges or whatever, and they just like given up on makeup altogether, whatever. And I just, that feeling, I knew I needed to do it. And so anyhow, so part of my whole mission from the very beginning was to not just create a product that worked for me and that helped other people, but to create a beauty company where like all the models I use and call beautiful models and mean it are every age and every size and every skin tone and every skin challenge. And I wanted to shift culture in the beauty industry around inclusivity. So I had this dream of QVC for that reason, because it's live. It's live 24/7 television to 100 million homes. And I was like, oh, I can go on and like take my makeup off, show my bright red rosacea, and show for real how the product works, not in a magazine or TV ad where you don't even know if they're wearing the product. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let me put like real women of every age and size and, skin challenge and really try to shift close. So I dreamed of QVC. I just felt it in my gut that I was supposed to be on QVC. And so to get Alan Burke on the phone and to have him tell me, you're not the right fit for our customers or for QVC, was devastating. And, and it's hard. And it was one of those moments for me where I had to figure out how to turn down the volume, in this case, on his opinion, and like try to just turn up the volume of my own gut that said, okay, because every time I would check in with my gut and I would hear it, it's like, you're on the right track. You're supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, is my gut wrong? Because no one else is believing in it. The experts that have done incredible things aren't believing in it, right? And those are the tough moments. And I think those are the moments that make people give up, that make people quit, that made people talk themselves out of their own dreams and their own truth and never step into all that they were created to be, because it's so easy and it makes so much sense in our heads to trust the people who are experts who are telling us how to do it. So anyways, it was a moment where, and I did a lot of things wrong in my journey. And I talk about so many of those in the book too, but this was one of the things I did right, where I was like, you know what, my gut is telling me to keep going. And I did. And we eventually were at a big beauty expo, and a QVC host came up to the booth. There were 6,000 women there, and I was demonstrating our product, and she loved our product, and something, she had this feeling to come up to me and to try and give me a shot. And long story short, we got one shot on QVC. And this is where one of the biggest life lessons and business lessons in terms of trusting your gut over experts or anyone else happened. And so we had one shot and 10 minutes on QVC. And here's the thing is it's a consignment deal in beauty, which what this meant. And by the way, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website at the time. And I didn't know how we were going to make it. Had no idea how we weren't going to go bankrupt. And we got this shot on QVC. but they ordered 6,000. We had to sell over 6,000 units of Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer in this 10-minute window in order to hit their sales goal or not come back. And I was like, okay, but the challenge was we had to pay for it, manufacture, and ship it all into them. And then if it didn't sell in that 10 minutes, we had to take it all back and not be paid for it. So everything was on the line. We didn't even have the money to do this. So we applied for SBA loans, and to the first 22 banks said no, and bank number 23 said yes. And we got enough money just to cover the order, the purchase order.
Because that can bankrupt a company as well. People don't understand.
2 seconds into absolutely. And, you know, for entrepreneurs, and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose ever. And we couldn't afford to lose this one, but we also had almost like run out of options. Like it was like, okay, we're going to just go all in. And so knowing this and knowing it came down to this one shot on live TV in 10 minutes, we hired these third-party consultants, and all of them told me the same thing. And by the way, they're great, and they help so many people sell well on television, and all those things. They know what they're doing. And we worked with them, and they all told me the same thing. They're like, okay, if you want to have a chance, if you want to have a shot, because most people, when they launch on QVC, it's like one time, they never come back. It's really hard.
Oh, I know.
Right?
People don't even understand those statistics. I mean, it's very, very rare that people have the story that you had, right? Where you just sell out, whatever. But we'll get to that in a second. But and that's when like companies like die on the vine right in that moment.
Yes. And I've seen it happen so many times too live, and it's the most devastating thing. And because it's everyone's dream, you know, and to get one shot is even that part. I mean, so for us, it was 3 years of hustling and trying, you know, getting no's. And so we got this one shot. And when we hired these experts, they all told me the exact same thing, which is, you know, if you want to have a shot at success, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were the same type of models I'd seen in commercials my whole life that made me feel like I wasn't enough. And, you know, this age, this, you know, all those things, and sell this way. And I would argue with them and say, okay, but like, if I'm sitting at home watching this, right? And let's say I'm 75 years old and I'm, you know, have hyperpigmentation, whatever it is. If I don't see anyone that looks like me, instead I see someone who looks like they're 12 with pop, like, how do I know it's going to work for me? Like, right. And I'd be like, and listen, I'm going to take my own makeup off and show my rosacea on national TV. And they're mortified. And I'm like, because if I were at home and I had rosacea too, I'd want to know, what is the product going to do? What does it really work? Like all those things. And it was so tough because they're like, listen, and they wanted the best for me. They were telling me the very best advice they knew. And I learned a huge lesson, which, by the way, this applies to everyone, no matter what situation you are in life. When other people, even experts, even friends, even loved ones, when they're giving you their advice and their opinion, they can mean so well, but they are only capable of giving it to you through their own lens. Right? Of limitation, their own lens of experience. And the other thing I've learned too, especially when it comes to experts, is even people that are like considered visionaries, and they are in so many ways, if you're doing anything that is new or novel or different, and even if you're doing something that's already been done a million times, but it's you doing it authentically, which means it's a different take on it, right? So by definition, it's new. Anytime you do something new, most likely experts aren't going to believe it's going to be successful and they're not going to know they're doing this, but like subconsciously, they've never seen proof that it is going to be successful because it's never been done before. And so like, had I learned that lesson earlier, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep when so many of them didn't believe that this new way of doing a beauty company would work. And so anyhow, there I was with one shot in front of me, a 10-minute window to either literally change my whole future or go bankrupt, which would also change my whole future.
Yeah, right.
And it felt like way too heavy for me to handle. And I flew out to QVC a week before our one shot on air. And I had this rental car and I sat in the parking lot all alone of QVC, just staring at the front door, watching people go in and out all day. I don't know why I parked there, but anyways, I was just there. And
Why? Why did you go a week early?
It was so heavy for me that first of all, I got there and I started going, okay, I once heard Olympic athletes visualize themselves landing the triple axel or
Yeah.
standing on the podium. I'm like, I'm going to try that. So I sat in that car and I was like envisioning the sold out sign coming up on the screen. I was envisioning real women. I sat there, I prayed, I cried. It felt so heavy. At one point I asked God to take it from me because I couldn't handle the pressure, and I wasn't scared for television. I just knew that this one shot was either going to,
Make or break.
exactly. When I would watch people go in and out of the doors, I was like, okay, the next time I walk through those doors, when I walk back out, it's either going to be life-changing or it's going to be, devastating. And I also just needed that time to really know what to do, because it's really hard when everyone else is saying one thing and our gut's like, oh no, but that's not authentic to why you're doing what you're doing. But I didn't have a chance to try it both ways. And I just remember sitting in that car trying to decide, okay, do I cast all the models they're telling me to have a shot at success? Or do I risk it all and take my makeup off and show real women of all shapes and ages and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges? And I just sat there and I knew what to do. But it's so hard when our mind tells us one thing and our heart and our gut is telling us another thing. And
Absolutely.
And at one point I just sat there in the car and I had this moment where I was imagining who she is watching. And, I think of so many different types of women. And the one that just would always jump out at me is I would imagine, for some reason, I don't know why, a single mom in Nebraska, folding laundry, who is too busy to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful and that she's worth it, all those things. And I had this moment in that car where I was like, you know what? I would rather if she's going to give me 5 seconds of her precious time to see me on QVC in the background of whatever she's doing, I would rather have her glance up on that television, not buy anything, and see me standing there showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. I'd rather do that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. You know what I mean? It was that moment where it was I knew what I had to do, but sometimes we know and it's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. And then we acquiesce to who the expert is or who the person is we're supposed to listen to.
Yeah.
And you didn't.
Well, and it was, I remember the moment. So the count, so I was standing there, I'm in the studio, we're about to go live, and they have this big countdown clock, right? And it's at 10 minutes. And I just remember all of a sudden the cameras turn on and you see the on-air thing go on. And I was freaking shaking like a leaf, and I'm not nervous for TV. That's what I did for my
Yes, you do for a living.
Yeah, it was all the pressure. And,
yes,
and,
of course.
And I was and then I saw the clock go 9:59, 9:58, 9:57. I was like, oh, and you can't try to sell or nothing sells. You can't freak out or nothing sells. But inside, I'm like, okay, this is bigger than me. I can't get in my own head. My dress was too tight that day. It was a whole anyways, I was like, I cannot get in my own head. And I just remember the show, I remember the moment they pulled my bare face before a shot on national television. And I just remember this whole thing. And then I went over to all of our models who are all different ages, shapes, sizes, everything, skin tones, skin challenges. And I all of a sudden I remember we were and by the way, if you're not doing well, let's say you're 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes into your 10-minute segment.
Yeah.
If you're not doing well, they know by the second if sales are happening. So your clock jumps down to 2 minutes and in your head, or 1 minute, you're like, oh, I just lost a product, or I just lost this much money, right? Because they don't mess around. It's and
so they don't even necessarily give you the whole 10 minutes.
Exactly.
So they know really quickly on if you're going to even.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you think about Target or Walmart, you get shelf space, and if you don't do well, you lose your shelf space, right?
Yeah.
And
don't you spend money on those shelf spaces? Don't you? Don't you spend money on the? Yeah.
Probably, yeah. But with QVC, it's the same thing. It's just business, but it's more immediate, literally right then and there. So all this pressure's on. And I just remember praying that my clock did not jump down. Right. And it's like all the minutes are going by. And then I was showing, all of our real women, all the models. And then I remember there was about a minute left and the host is like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade is almost gone. And I'm like, and then I remember literally there was 1 minute, or no, 1 second left. And the sold out sign came up across the screen. And I was like, and literally these tears started streaming down my face. They cut and went right on to the next studio, whatever item was next, a Dyson vacuum or something. I don't remember. And then all of a sudden I was just like sobbing hysterically. And then my husband came rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I was like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like,
oh my God.
And it was this crazy story. And, that one airing turned into 5 that year and then 150 the next year. And then we did over 250 shows a year for 8 years and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this
Still?
day. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I only share that because it was 3 years of hearing no. It was 3 years of even Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit for QVC. And so many of us get that opposition and that's what we listen to. Right. And it's
Yes.
easy. And it's like Jay-Z. Jay-Z said that famous quote, like he said, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. Right. And
Yes.
so many times it comes down to that. And also just figuring out how to believe that it's possible to succeed. It's just not happening yet. One more. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. And then I'll ask you after.
You said earlier about when we were talking about how our setbacks turn into setups and like sometimes we can't see it at the time. And so one more thing just to share is Alan Burke, who had said, no, you're not the right fit. After we launched on QVC, oh my gosh, he ended up becoming, I got to know him so well and he became like one of our greatest champions, one of the best advisors we've ever had. And then he became one of my closest mentors and he is to this day. And he is so freaking brilliant. It's the biggest blessing. But anyways, he ended up retiring from QVC and we ended up hiring him in a paid position on our advisory board. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the guy that rejected me is now working for me. And I was like, listen, like no one can tell you you're not the right fit. Like no one can, right? And the last thing I'll say about that, and this is important too, because even though all the years of no's hurt, Sephora rejecting me hurt, Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit hurt. Like sometimes those painful no's are like actually like serendipitous grace, like in our favor, right? Wrapped in this like package label painful rejection. Because what I later learned was Alan Burke was right all along. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And had he said yes to us when I wanted him to, we would have failed because we did not have the infrastructure you need to support the back end of the business for an account like QVC. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And similarly, we didn't have the right team to be able to support an Ulta or a Sephora yet in terms of education across the country. Like we built up a team of over 1,000 employees, but during the years when we were getting told no from everybody, I didn't know what I didn't know. And thank goodness we didn't get a yes sooner because we would have failed and we may not have gotten another chance. And so, a lot of full circle moments. They're so hard to see when we're in them, but when we keep going, we get to that point where we have those things happen.
Well, I was going to ask you, whatever happened to Alan Burke? Because why did he say, my question was, did he ever give you a reason why he said no? So did he tell you on that phone call when you spoke to him, why?
He just said, you're not the right fit for us. We reviewed your brand, our customers.
How did he know what your back end was? How would he know?
I think
right. So do you think he was just making that up because he felt silly that he said no to the?
He didn't know what our back end was. He just said no. I think that he thought our packaging wasn't ready and that we weren't ready, but he didn't know I think some people call it the universe. Other people call it divine orchestration. Other people call it God. I really believe the famous saying that things happen for us, not to us, right? So he didn't know what our operational infrastructure was. He just probably knew in his own gut to say no. You know what I mean? And that we weren't ready or whatever. And that's why I think like sometimes things don't make sense when they happen against us. But like when we learn to trust ourselves and trust that things are divinely orchestrated, you know, whether some people call it the universe, some people call it God. For me, faith's a big deal, but like that, I know. Believe that, you know.
Have you always been very religious, or did you kind of come to it more later on in life?
You know, I was raised where my parents made me, keyword made, forced me to go to church every Sunday. And I never connected with it growing up. Like I didn't whenever the pastors would give sermons, I literally couldn't connect with any of it. I would tune it out. I would scan the church pews for boys, cute boys, and I would just like count down the minutes, like hoping it would end. And, you know, I always prayed and I always believed in God growing up. And then my journey was really different of God doubt, a lot of God doubt. And what I mean by that is like, you know, I always wanted to see new cultures, new experiences, and new people who didn't look like me or pray like me or love like me. And I just wanted that so badly. And so I was always, you know, that's why I worked so many jobs. I was like, I got to get out and I got to get somewhere else and experience new things. And, you know, I went to school and then I ended up going to graduate school in New York City. And when I did that, I was for the first time really around so many people who had so many different faiths and a lot of people with no faith. And I was around so many science-based arguments on why God doesn't exist. And they all started to really make a lot of sense to me, right? People that believe, like they don't believe in anything unless you can see it, you know, prove it, touch it. For with faith is not required. And it really started impacting me. And you know, there was a season I went through. I was working as a news anchor in Portland, Oregon.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.